let it go.
Did you just track what I just said?
Yeah.
What do you think about that? You just went back to the letters.
Well,
They called it faith. It was really control. The truth behind Sister Wives isn't about religion. It's about one man's ego collapsing on camera. Kody Brown, self-anointed patriarch of what used to be a plural utopia, now spends his twilight years of televised polygamy trying to decipher the same mystery as his audience. Why no one wants to talk to him anymore. His favorite wives have fled. His kingdom of cul-de-sacs has dissolved, and all he can do is stare longingly into the void. Or, more accurately, into Zoom, and ask, what's new? The irony is delicious. For decades, Kody demanded transparency, control, and access to every corner of his wives' lives. Now, cut off and left to piece together updates from social media like any other scorned ex, he's discovering what emotional privacy looks like. He just doesn't like it when it's used against him. The latest act in this reality tragedy comes with Meri's quiet defiance. Once the dutiful first wife who stitched pajamas and swallowed humiliation with grace, she now politely stonewalls him. Kody's attempt at casual small talk about her bed and breakfast renovations reveals his desperate curiosity more than any genuine interest. His tone, confused, wounded, vaguely accusatory, suggests that Meri's refusal to gossip about her own business is a personal betrayal. The man who once treated her as expendable property now can't stand being locked out of her Google Calendar. His frustration reeks of entitlement, the conviction that because he was once central to her story, he should remain its narrator. Of course, that sense of ownership is nothing new. Kody still refers to Meri in possessive tones, as if the divorce papers were merely symbolic. His infamous quip about giving her away at her hypothetical next wedding wasn't a joke. It was a Freudian slip. Beneath the flailing bravado, he still believes she's his to relinquish. To his mind, these women aren't individuals but characters orbiting the Kody Brown show. Now that they've stopped showing up to filming, he's bewildered. The schadenfreude is hard to resist. Watching the women collectively gray-rock him, emotionally unresponsive, impenetrable, bored, is poetic justice. He once demanded that every wife revolve around his moods, his plans, his spiritual leadership. Now, their silence is his punishment. It's not rage or revenge. It's disinterest, which for a narcissist is worse than hate. And when he sputters that they're being weird or closed off, it's really the sound of a man realizing that his old authority no longer registers. The emperor of plural marriage has discovered that his subjects moved on without him. Meanwhile, the alleged last standing wife, Robyn, continues to play her role as the martyr of monogamy disguised as plural loyalty. Kody insists she's shy, though her behavior suggests something far more performative. Watching her introduce herself first in dance class, dance extended, smile plastered, reveals not bashfulness but strategic poise. Her hesitations aren't rooted in modesty but in mortification. She's embarrassed, not shy, trapped in a ballroom with a husband who believes flailing around like a malfunctioning scarecrow qualifies as charisma. Kody's dancing, a term used generously here, is the perfect metaphor for his leadership. He flails with confidence, utterly convinced he's impressive, while everyone else cringes in secondhand humiliation. Robyn, ever the image manager, keeps her face composed but her soul visibly wilts. When she complains that he treats her like a prop, she's not wrong. He sees her as the stage piece validating his relevance. But the irony is exquisite. She spent years cultivating that position. She wanted to be the favored one. Now, she's the only one left to watch him gyrate through delusion. Their on-screen chemistry, if one can call it that, has all the excitement of two people forced to share a table at a mandatory office luncheon. Every week, audiences are treated to the same cinematic masterpiece. Kody and Robyn sitting in yet another dimly lit restaurant, pretending to like each other. It's the creative equivalent of beige wallpaper. Endlessly flat yet somehow still jarring. And yet, TLC keeps rolling because the spectacle isn't in their happiness but in their implosion. The Browns are reality television's equivalent of a slow-motion car crash. Everyone watches, horrified but unable to look away. To call Kody a manipulator is redundant. It's his defining skill set. His most impressive sleight of hand remains the family's infamous relocation to Flagstaff, a move justified through a mixture of pseudo-spiritual rhetoric and financial opportunism. Watching him narrate on camera how he deliberately misled his wives to make it special for them is as chilling as it is revealing. He says it with pride, like a magician explaining a trick that involved gaslighting half a dozen people. Each wife was sold a tailored lie designed to prey on her insecurities. Meri was told the move could rekindle their relationship. Christine was promised adventure. Janelle was baited with talk of land and independence. In reality, the move served one purpose: to consolidate control and redirect the collective assets toward whatever Robyn happened to want that year. If Kody was the puppet master, Robyn was the whisper in his ear, planting ideas he mistook for divine inspiration. Together, they perfected the art of manipulation disguised as revelation. This dynamic, cloaked in religious vocabulary, functioned less like faith and more like theater. Kody's visions conveniently aligned with his material desires, and Robyn's submissive act masked her precision in steering the ship. The so-called COVID rules were another masterclass. Restrictions Robyn proposed under the guise of spiritual obedience, which Kody then enforced as divine law. Later, she denied involvement, dutifully blaming her husband while maintaining the halo of supportive martyrdom. The choreography is seamless. She plants, he enforces, she absolves. And through it all, Kody frames his deceit as leadership. He's the benevolent shepherd guiding lost sheep, except the flock has scattered, and the only one still grazing is the one who trained him to use the crook. Watching him speak with that blend of condescension and self-pity is almost admirable. Few men can fail so publicly and still narrate their downfall as a sermon. Among the wreckage, Meri stands as both a victim and a cautionary tale. For years, she was painted as the difficult one, too direct, too controlling, too much. Yet, rewatching her arc reveals a woman who entered polygamy with romantic delusions and ended up institutionalized in her own heartbreak. She was the first wife, the one from the culture, the one who believed that if she played by the rules of celestial marriage, she'd be rewarded with sisterhood and legacy. Instead, she got isolation and infertility in a system that measured her worth by her womb. Her inability to have more children became her scarlet letter. While Janelle and Christine produced sprawling clans of sons and daughters, Meri remained the outlier, the one-child mother who could neither expand the family nor fit comfortably within it. In a culture where motherhood equals moral currency, she was spiritually bankrupt through no fault of her own. Her temper, her possessiveness, her sharp edges, all were symptoms of a woman cornered by expectation and erased by comparison. The tragedy is not just personal but systemic. In the hierarchy of Kody's affection, fertility and compliance were the twin pillars. Janelle's independence and pragmatism made her tolerable. Christine's warmth made her useful. Meri, too emotional, too assertive, too barren, became expendable. When she lost her position as the legal wife to Robyn, it wasn't merely a bureaucratic change. It was the ceremonial erasure of her identity. Robyn didn't just marry Kody, she replaced Meri's function entirely. And yet, Meri continued showing up, trying to reconcile her faith with her humiliation. That persistence, mistaken by many for desperation, might actually be the quietest act of rebellion. She refused to give Kody the satisfaction of quitting first. The family's attempt to paint Meri as emotionally abusive only deepened the hypocrisy. The same man who publicly humiliated her for years, declaring he no longer considered her a wife and never loved her, somehow managed to frame himself as the aggrieved party when she finally left. His tears over the sadness of the separation would be touching if they weren't so grotesquely self-serving. He wasn't mourning her absence. He was mourning the loss of his audience. Once upon a time, Robyn Brown styled herself as the romantic heroine of Sister Wives, the elegant outsider who swept in to remind the dusty polygamists how to love. She fluttered her eyelashes, spoke in a trembling voice about sacred covenants, and perfected the art of the moist-eyed confessional. Fast forward to the present, and the princess has become the prison warden. The last wife standing now sits in a gilded cage of her own design, holding the crown she fought for but realizing the throne comes with only one subject, Kody, the man she thought she wanted. It's hard to overstate Robyn's role in the Brown family implosion. She didn't invent Kody's narcissism, but she weaponized it. Where the other wives rolled their eyes or resisted, she studied him. She learned that the quickest path to control wasn't confrontation, but flattery. When Kody needed validation, she provided it. When he needed a scapegoat, she offered one. And when he wanted justification for his cruelty, she gave him divine cover. In the Gospel according to Robyn, manipulation is ministry. Robyn's genius lies in her performance of powerlessness. She packages control as devotion, an act so convincing that even Kody believes it. On camera, she wrings her hands, lowers her voice, and sighs about how hard it is to be caught in the middle. Then, as if by accident, she drops a comment that redirects the entire family's trajectory. She's the ventriloquist whose puppet thinks it's improvising. Her brand of manipulation is quiet, elegant, and perfectly plausible. During the family's pandemic debacle, she whispered her anxieties about exposure, and Kody, ever the eager knight, turned them into commandments. When the family revolted against his draconian rules, she stayed on the sidelines, letting him take the fall. Later, she emerged with her favorite line, "I didn't tell him what to do. He just feels strongly about protecting us." It's the marital equivalent of lighting a match, walking away, and returning to weep over the ashes. What makes Robyn especially effective is her mastery of plausible deniability. Unlike Meri's visible frustration or Christine's open rebellion, Robyn operates in the fog. Her statements are always couched in concern, her interference wrapped in empathy. She doesn't order, she suggests. She doesn't criticize, she worries. Yet every outcome benefits her. When Meri was shamed into surrendering her legal marriage for the good of the family, it was Robyn's teary insistence that sealed the deal. And when the family finances quietly reoriented around Robyn's house and children, it was done under the banner of fairness. Somehow, fairness always meant everyone else paying for Robyn's comfort. Now that the other wives have exited stage left, Robyn's performance has lost its audience. The tears, once her greatest weapon, no longer move anyone. Watching her in recent seasons is like watching an actress forced to continue a one-woman show after the theater has burned down. The competition she thrived on has evaporated. Without rival wives to outshine, Robyn seems adrift, listless, melancholic, and increasingly resentful of the man she fought to monopolize. The disinterest radiates off her in waves. She sits beside Kody, dutifully listening as he rants about betrayal, and her face drifts somewhere between boredom and existential dread. The victory of being the last wife standing has turned out to be a life sentence. The once glorious favorite now shares a couch with a man whose defining trait is bitterness. She got what she wanted, and it's killing her softly. Her behavior reeks of someone building a narrative exit. The saintly tone has sharpened into martyrdom. She speaks about trying to stay faithful while lamenting that Kody's fall from grace might keep her from heaven. Translation: she's rehearsing her defense. When she eventually leaves, and she will, it won't be as the opportunist who schemed her way to the top. It'll be as the long-suffering woman who tried to hold the family together, but could no longer bear the weight of her husband's sins. Every sigh and self-pitying confession is evidence for the eventual divorce proceedings. While Robyn stews in her kingdom of crumbs, Janelle and Christine have done the unthinkable. They escaped. Not with fireworks or revenge, but with something far more threatening to Kody's ego: indifference. Janelle, the pragmatic realist of the group, finally realized that she'd been the family's workhorse all along. She financed his vanity projects, raised the majority of the children, and still got lectured about loyalty by a man who couldn't remember her anniversary. When she told Kody she was choosing herself, it wasn't rebellion. It was arithmetic. The cost of staying simply exceeded the benefit. Christine's exit, meanwhile, had theatrical flair, fitting for the one wife who actually seemed to enjoy performing. For years, she played the cheerful homemaker, convinced that if she smiled hard enough, she could charm her way into Kody's affection. But beneath the giggles lay despair. Her book revealed the painful choreography of self-erasure required to survive plural marriage. The moment she stopped pretending was the moment she became free. Her departure wasn't impulsive. It was the final scene of a long, slow death. Kody calls their independence betrayal. In truth, it's liberation from his emotional dictatorship. He still interprets every boundary as a personal attack, every silence as mutiny. Watching him rant about being abandoned while refusing to see his role in driving them away is reality television at its most unintentionally Shakespearean. A tragic king, surrounded by ghosts, raging that no one will sit through his monologues anymore.
Even the show itself seems aware of the decay. What was once marketed as a daring exploration of unconventional family now plays like an endless loop of complaints filmed in beige rooms. Every storyline has collapsed into repetition. Kody sulks, Robyn cries, Meri rebuilds, Janelle thrives, Christine glows. The editing team appears to have surrendered to absurdity, padding episodes with long, silent shots of Kody brooding over coffee like a suburban hamlet. Viewers tune in not for insight, but for closure that never arrives. The network, of course, won't let it die. The series is a cash cow that no longer needs milk. It survives on inertia and morbid fascination. The ratings thrive not on love, but on schadenfreude. The audience isn't rooting for reconciliation. They're waiting for the inevitable implosion. In that sense, Sister Wives has evolved from family portrait to cultural autopsy, a slow dissection of religious patriarchy in real time, wrapped in sequins and denial. Kody's latest sermon that the wives have turned away from their faith is especially rich. Faith in his world was always code for obedience. When they followed his commands, they were devout. When they questioned him, they were apostate. The irony is biblical. The self-proclaimed prophet abandoned his own creed the moment it ceased to serve his ego. Polygamy, he insists, is still holy, just not holy enough to attempt again. Apparently, salvation only applies when other women are willing to sign up for it. If Kody and Robyn truly believed in plural marriage as divine truth, they'd be auditioning new wives by now. Instead, they sit in their Arizona mansion lamenting that the others destroyed the principle. The truth is simpler. Neither of them wants competition. Kody has grown too lazy to maintain multiple relationships, and Robyn too territorial to share her trophy. They use religion as a fig leaf to cover what's always been the real motivation: vanity, money, and the comfort of being filmed. What's left of the Brown Empire is less a family than an economic arrangement. The wives who once pooled resources for the greater good have learned that the greater good was always Robyn's mortgage. The shared dream of Coyote Pass, the promised land of unity, now sits undeveloped, a monument to wasted promises and collective delusion. Each ex-wife has taken her portion of the wreckage and built something tangible, while Kody clings to dirt and nostalgia. Janelle's newfound independence, Christine's remarriage, and Meri's quiet entrepreneurship all expose the fraud of Kody's leadership. They've built lives without him, proving that the so-called spiritual head was never the source of their stability. He was the chaos,
He was the chaos they survived. His obsession with control masked incompetence. His lectures about family unity concealed fear. What he called love was really ownership, and what he called faith was simply a refusal to be questioned. The real miracle of Sister Wives isn't the endurance of plural marriage. It's the survival of the women who escaped it. If Sister Wives began as a sermon about faith and family, it ends as a cautionary tale about ego and exposure. What was once billed as a radical love story has evolved into a televised obituary for the concept of polygamy itself, a genre that tried to sanctify control, monetize misery, and call the result a marriage. What remains of the Brown Empire is not a family but a parable. A man who mistook attention for affection, a woman who confused manipulation with love, and a network that never met a breakdown it couldn't stretch across 3 episodes. At its core, the show now serves as anthropology, a study in how patriarchal systems decay when their subjects develop self-awareness. The wives, once groomed to orbit Kody's gravitational pull, slowly realized they had their own orbits. When they began to name their unhappiness aloud, the universe of spiritual unity collapsed in real time. TLC cameras captured the implosion with the solemnity of wildlife photographers documenting extinction. Meri Brown remains the most tragic figure. Not because she lost Kody, but because she ever wanted to keep him. Her story embodies the quiet horror of religious conditioning. Raised in a faith that preaches female submission as divine duty, she entered marriage like a devout soldier, ready to sacrifice identity for salvation. For years, she carried the burden of being the example, the first wife, the trailblazer, the emotional workhorse. And what did loyalty earn her? Public humiliation, decades of emotional neglect, and the privilege of watching her husband annul her existence for a younger replacement.
Yet Meri's endurance has hardened into something resembling grace. The woman once desperate for crumbs now owns the whole bakery, literally and symbolically. Her bed and breakfast, her solitude, her new boundaries, all are acts of quiet reclamation. Kody may see her silence as hostility. In truth, it's freedom. Nothing terrifies a narcissist more than a woman who no longer requires explanation. The irony is exquisite. The wife once accused of being too controlling now controls the one thing Kody can't: access. He wanted obedience. She gave him distance. In a story defined by his monologues, her refusal to speak has become the loudest line of dialogue. Janelle Brown's rebellion arrived without theatrics or tears. She simply stopped participating. While Kody ranted about loyalty and spiritual betrayal, Janelle looked at the family ledger and realized that the math didn't work anymore. Every investment, every sacrifice, every compromise had yielded diminishing returns. Her exit was not emotional. It was administrative. She ran the numbers and filed for independence. Her detachment is Kody's worst nightmare, the wife who neither loves nor hates him, only audits him. Unlike Meri's anguish or Christine's theatrical heartbreak, Janelle's disinterest strips Kody of narrative power. He can rage against betrayal, but how do you rage against someone who's no longer even listening? She doesn't need to win the argument because she's already closed the account. Christine Brown's departure will likely be remembered as the show's defining rupture, not because it was dramatic, but because it was joyful. After decades of forced smiles and spiritual gaslighting, she reclaimed happiness as an act of rebellion. The woman who once choked back jealousy and resentment now dances through interviews with unfiltered glee. The contrast is almost cruel. Nothing exposes the emptiness of Kody's kingdom more brutally than Christine's laughter. She was the wife who most sincerely believed in the fairy tale of plural marriage, and thus her awakening was the most devastating. When she finally said, "I deserve better," it wasn't just personal liberation, it was ideological heresy.
She shattered the illusion that polygamy could coexist with self-respect. Her remarriage, to a man who treats her like an equal rather than a subordinate, completed the metamorphosis. She didn't just leave Kody, she left the theology that justified him. And Kody, true to form, interpreted her happiness as an act of aggression. In his cosmology, women exist to revolve around his discontent. Watching Christine thrive without him isn't just painful, it's unthinkable. Her joy is a mirror reflecting everything he lost, and more importantly, everything he never offered. Then there's Robyn, the self-crowned Queen of Tears trapped in the palace she built. Her victory lap has turned into purgatory. She won the game, yes, but the prize was Kody, a man now too angry to adore and too exposed to admire. Once, she thrived on being envied. Now she's merely pitied. The woman who once weaponized fragility now performs it out of habit, no longer sure what she's defending. Her tragedy is self-inflicted. She fought for exclusivity in a religion built on plurality, believing that monopolizing the patriarch would secure her peace. Instead, she's left with an exhausted man shouting into the void about loyalty while no one answers. Even her tears have lost their potency. What once moved audiences to empathy now elicits only eye rolls. The halo has slipped, and underneath it is just another reality star realizing she aged out of her narrative. Watching Robyn and Kody cling to each other out of obligation, not affection, feels like observing the last two actors on a canceled show still performing to an empty studio. They aren't partners, they're co-conspirators in denial, bound together by a contract, a mortgage, and mutual resentment. Kody Brown remains the tragicomic center of the spectacle, part cult leader, part stand-up comedian, part abandoned mascot. His spiritual rhetoric has always been camouflage for control. Leadership meant compliance. Faith meant silence. The wives' love was currency, traded for validation and filmed for profit. Now that the bank has closed, he's left trying to cash emotional checks that no one will sign. His downfall isn't cinematic, it's banal. There's no fiery climax, just the slow erosion of relevance. Watching him lament that he's lost respect for women who refuse to obey him is like watching a CEO fire all his employees and then complain that productivity is down. He's not a villain in the grand Shakespearean sense. He's smaller than that, pettier. His greatest punishment is the realization that no one fears or desires him anymore.
Yet, in true Kody fashion, he mistakes victimhood for virtue. Every confessional drips with self-pity and revisionist history. He claims betrayal while forgetting his own record of neglect. He speaks of heartbreak while recounting how he never loved half his wives. The cognitive dissonance is staggering, but also darkly funny. Reality television rarely produces genuine character arcs, but Kody Brown has achieved something close, a live-streamed lesson in self-destruction. The phrase sacred loneliness, once a poetic euphemism for the spiritual challenges of plural marriage, now reads like a diagnosis. Each wife lived it in her own way. Isolated, diminished, trained to call deprivation holy. The entire premise of the show was built on this paradox: women finding joy in scarcity. It's a theology of emotional austerity dressed up as enlightenment. But when the wives finally stopped romanticizing their pain, the faith collapsed. Plural marriage, stripped of its divine propaganda, revealed itself as what it always was: a hierarchy of attention where one man's ego is the sun, and every woman competes for a sliver of warmth. The show didn't destroy that illusion. It documented its slow decay, one confessional at a time. If there's a moral to this televised fable, it's that exposure and self-awareness cannot coexist peacefully. The Browns built a brand on sincerity, but sincerity doesn't survive editing. What began as a cultural experiment devolved into voyeurism, and finally, parody. The wives discovered feminism through fatigue.
The husband discovered irrelevance through broadcast. TLC, ever the opportunist, packages their suffering as content while pretending it's sociology. And yet, beneath the exploitation lies something oddly profound. The show accidentally chronicled the death of a patriarchal ideal. It's the rare reality series that became its own critique. Every episode is an unintentional essay on control, gender, and the false promise of divine hierarchy. Today, the Brown family's spiritual empire is scattered across Instagram feeds and renovation projects. Christine posts joy. Janelle posts balance. Meri posts empowerment quotes in between business updates. Robyn posts nothing. Silence, fittingly, her most revealing confession. And Kody? He still performs, shouting into the echo chamber of his own creation, waiting for applause that will never come. The empire didn't crumble from scandal or sin. It rotted from within, eaten alive by ego, control, and the delusion that love can be managed like a business portfolio. In the end, the story of Sister Wives is not about polygamy or faith or even marriage. It's about what happens when people mistake visibility for meaning. The cameras captured everything except self-awareness. And that, perhaps, is the true genius of Sister Wives. It began as propaganda and ended as poetry. A slow, accidental elegy for the women who learned to outgrow their prophet, and for the prophet who never learned to outgrow himself. When the applause fades and the truth echoes, you'll want to hear it with us. Stay.